I do
It's
love
good
talking
stuff.
about this with you, and I feel like we could keep going, but we're already at an hour. And I,
Yeah, hit me. Speed
yeah.
topic, speed round.
All right, so let's do a quick, um, maybe 10 minutes or 8 minutes on the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial.
Oh my
So,
God, this is amazing.
it was a defamation case, and it's over. So you can kind of lay out the results of who won.
I don't
Um,
think it's over. I
okay,
think, well,
but
yeah. I mean,
we'll
I
talk
haven't been
about
following
that.
it since. Sure, yeah, yeah. You
Uh,
set the stage.
well, yeah, I mean, I thought it was over, or at least, so if there's something more that's going on, maybe say that. But I know that there was like a verdict and somebody got awarded money, and then maybe explain who was suing who and like what the burden of proof is on that. And
Sure.
then what would you say led to the jury? And I thought that Johnny Depp won. So if that's the case, I kind of
No,
maybe the next thing is get into why that is.
I just okay. So there's a couple things to unpack here. So what happens is they have this relationship. It's pretty clear from testimony that they're just both like terrible people. Um, Obviously, right now people think he was less terrible. I don't know that that's true. They both seem a little abusive, but there's this article that Amber Heard writes. Cannot remember what it was through. It was maybe through like the Atlantic or something. She writes an article and she talks about being a survivor of abuse.
Okay.
Uh, and she doesn't mention Johnny Depp by name. So keep that in mind. We have one thing that happens in Britain with The Sun. They publish an article saying, based off of that, and some other information, that Johnny Depp has like abused her. He's a wife beater, whatever. Um, he sues The Sun in Britain, and I couldn't tell you all the details, but roughly it's easier to
Who's
prove.
whose son? Johnny Depp sues somebody's son.
The Sun is a tabloid in Britain.
Oh, okay, okay.
So he sues The Sun and loses, and it's supposed to be easier to win on defamation charges or uh, cause of actions in Britain. He loses defamation there. Then he brings suit against Amber Heard in the United States for the article she wrote. And the reason he sues her in Virginia, and you can sue, they have jurisdiction anywhere, basically anywhere where the Atlantic was published, or you can sue where they live, where it happened, or anywhere that it happened. So like that being the defamation, and if the Atlantic is distributed to all 50 states, you could sue her in all 50 states.
Makes
So he
sense.
sues her in Virginia because Virginia's defamation jurisprudence is that you can infer that they were talking about you if it's obvious they were talking about you. But like in most states, she would have had to mention him by name. So that's why it's in Virginia in this like rinky-dink court that no one could make sense of. That's the reason it was there.
Okay.
The onus of the way defamation works, defamation is like a catch-all. But the way it works is for like libel and slander, once written, once spoken. Let's just call it defamation. There's three prongs. You have to say something that's inaccurate that causes harm. And for regular people, you have to say something that's inaccurate that causes harm, and you have to do it with like malicious intent. Basically, like you were trying to hurt them. For public figures, or no, yeah, that's for public figures. For regular people, you just have to say something inaccurate and cause harm. But for public figures, you have to do it with malicious intent. So the standard is higher. You like can't win defamation cases if you're a public figure. This is why it's so incredible. But her lawyers were just terrible. Like his
It
lawyers were
did
much
seem
better
like
than
her
hers.
her whole legal team
Yeah,
was terrible,
and they
especially the
did a really
main
good job.
woman.
He was he's much more charismatic. So like him on the stand did a lot for his case. The way it all went down at trial, like not super surprised after watching that, but usually this doesn't go this way. Oh, and by the way, like she like the reason you had them both testifying is like she countersued him. So they were both suing each other, and they basically dismissed all of hers and then dismissed like two of his, and it came out to like I can't remember, like $15 million or something like that. But it was actual damages, which so you can sue for. There's three types of damages. You have like economic and non-economic. So economic is like, this is what my car was worth. This is what like uh, my lost wages were worth. And then you have non-economic, which is like pain and suffering. And then you have punitive damages, which is something intended entirely to punish you. So like McDonald's case, coffee, whatever. The woman's damages were like a year of work and reconstructive surgery on her labia, right? Then you have punitive damages, which they came out with like what, $12 million or something, I can't remember, and it was the amount of money that McDonald's makes on coffee in one day. That's how they came to that number, which I think should blow your mind. That was like slap on the
Yeah.
wrist.
Holy shit.
But since that, we have what's called tort reform, and most states have tort reform that limits punitive damages at like $250K by statute. Doesn't matter what the jury says, the judge will come back and correct it. So she actually didn't owe him that much from the verdict, because the punitive damages, which I think was like 2/3 of it, was going to be reduced to $250,000. But she did still file bankruptcy, I think. I don't exactly. So the reason I said I don't know if it's over is because I was like, can she appeal it? I can't remember. You can appeal questions of law, not questions of fact. So question of law is like, what does the statute mean? The question of fact is like, did she say those things or not? And so the jury is the ultimate finder of fact. Like on appeal, you can't appeal what the jury thought happened. That stays.
Okay.
But you can appeal if it was applied incorrectly, the law was applied incorrectly, or you can appeal if like the jury was tampered with, or like you can actually, I think you can appeal for, ineffective representation, like get a shitty lawyer. Maybe she should appeal for that. But that's probably over. I don't remember if she'd appealed or not, but if she filed bankruptcy, she's probably not going to.
Oh
But
yeah,
what's
I see what you're
interesting
saying,
is,
because the appeal process is probably not over.
but it might be, and better yet, like I don't know if this really rehabilitated his image. Like he won in the court of public opinion, right? Because people think he's less bad than she was. But I don't know if Disney's about to like cast him in another Pirates movie.
Well, I
Like
mean, he
he's probably
famously
never getting that.
said. So I do know that Amber Heard's lawyer asked him, Johnny, would you do another Pirates movie for $300 million and like 100 alpacas or something like that? And I mean, the 300 million is accurate, and then there was something with alpacas, and Johnny said no. And so, I mean, and then there was all these memes like Disney offer him 3 million and $1. Um, I took it that Johnny, in the court of public opinion, definitely won, and that
Yeah.
big movie studios probably would want to offer him movies again. And I also saw a headline, I didn't really look into it, but that said Amber Heard is being replaced in Aquaman 2.
She did
Um,
get pulled off of it, yeah.
and it was just going to be like her role was reduced, but now I think she's totally out. Um, so
The
it's
big headline from all of it was the Me Too movement, which is basically what she came out and wrote about. Well, not necessarily. Actually, I think she did come out and say it was like sexual assault by him. I think it was that, or it was just abuse. But the big narrative was you have this Me Too movement, which I think in some ways is an overcorrection, or it has become an overcorrection, and some of the things that we're canceling people for. But it needed to be corrected in terms of what women are going through, and how that's being how it's not talked about, and it's hard to accuse people. Having people correct that publicly, or having the society correct that and believing women more is great. The overcorrection is believe all women all the time, because I'm sure there's a woman out there who's lied once. So you have this thing where she comes out and says this about him, and he gets canceled, right? And then he comes back and says, no, actually, she was the abuser. And so when that goes through the court of public opinion, and people think, wow, we have a person who we canceled, but actually it should have been the person we believed. And obviously, I think their situation is more complicated, which I think really just lends itself to maybe this has been an overcorrection and maybe we should be a little slower to just cancel people. But I think the prevailing momentum at the start of that movement was just so many creepy guys getting like finally outed that it's a tough thing to say without
Yeah.
sounding insensitive. But I think in terms of their dynamic, you see it go back and forth. And so I definitely think he won that. And I don't even know if that's correct because it kind of seems like they were both abusive.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems like they were both abusive. And whenever there's the whole Me Too movement, I tend to look at a lot of the women that were making accusations as they were probably all true or based in truth to some degree, and a lot of it, I think that they were right, and I'm glad that that got corrected. But I always think we have to look at each case on a case by case basis, and then like look at the situation and give each case its time. And it's I think as a society, when that movement started to happen, it's just like a snowball effect, and people don't want to give it their time. They just want to say, "Yep." And like when you actually take the time to look at the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, it's clear that they were both probably abusive. And I don't know, there's probably like some of those other cases where there was two sides to every story, and we are, who knows if we're getting the full story. Um, I do want to jump to
Your
the
your
next
issue
thing.
with your
Oh,
issue
go
with
ahead.
sexual crimes, yeah, your issue with sexual crimes, right? Not even sexual crimes, sexual assault, whatever's happening in these situations, is it's like with Deshaun Watson, you're not proving that something happened. We're not. You're not proving that he did or did not touch her. You're proving that you're trying to prove the absence of something. You're trying to prove that there wasn't consent. And so the overcorrection or the correction for with Me Too is, the gravity of getting that wrong for her is terrible,
Yeah.
right? This hype. And so I understand it. It's just like the nature of our legal system doesn't lend itself to protecting victims well in situations like this. But it's not going anywhere anytime soon.